Hello, I'm Matt Ogden and welcome to By George From Page to Stage. So, Rich, today we've got someone right in between us.
You're looking at royalty here. This is it. A very
presence of greatness.
That's not making me feel self-conscious.
This is Maria. Maria is
Hi.
my sister-in-law. She is also my editor-in-chief, and she's amazing. And today we're going to talk about the editing process and how By George went from being a ragtag bunch of ideas to being a formulated piece of theatre. So, Matt, all yours.
So how the hell did you manage to edit something that Rich wrote into something less smutty than the last musical and something that could actually go on the stage in 2023?
It's been difficult, Matt. That's all I can say. It's been really difficult. The thing is, you to give this a bit of a wider context. Obviously, as has been kind of said, I edited Curtains, good grief, whatever it's called nowadays. Mm-hmm. And that process was a very long time ago. Feels a very long time ago. So when Curtains had finished, obviously, as I'm sure you've already discussed, the first version of By George, which was With It, was put forward, and we started looking at that, and then everything kind of stopped for a very long time. And so we come back around to it a few years ago now, and yeah, Rich comes to me with it. How it all happens is Rich comes to me with a script and goes, "There you go, have a script," and I go, "No, have it back," and we do that for a long time.
But you also get your famous red pen out.
Yes.
Oh, is it a permanent marker pen? Is it a biro? What are we talking?
Yeah, we're talking biro, but I've slightly upgraded now to red notes on, on the actual
Word document.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I found a way
We've
of doing it on
digitised.
that as well. Yeah. So you can have it in twofold now. Rich will kind of give me the script, and I think the basis of the editing process is to say no to Richard an awful lot. No, you can't put that idea in. No, you can't use that word. No, Richard. We'll get arrested. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that kind of thing to start with.
Well, when we did Curtains, I mean, the editing process was
Different.
It was different. I think it was a little less severe than this one, because the script was a generic story where the people were total stereotypes, and it was just going from gag to gag to gag.
Yeah.
It was far more joke-filled than this one.
More comedy than musical.
Very much so. Well, I mean,
Yes.
basically what you said was, you cannot say that joke. There's no question no one will like that. But I did get a few pearlers in.
You did.
There was one song called Whatever Turns You On. And, I mean, we did go through a few...
We did go through many, many arguments and versions about, no, Richard, you cannot possibly put that word in a song. Nobody will accept it.
But we did get necrophilia and colostomy bags into that song.
Genuinely, if you really don't believe us, listen to it. It's on the website somewhere.
Yeah, it is.
We had quite a few discussions about that. Me saying no and Richard saying yes, an awful lot, and he won.
I really want to listen to that song.
I'll give you an example. One of the verses goes, "And in the bedroom, dear, if I should venture near, is there something I think you should know? No, not a thing, my dear, the rash cleared up last year and the risk of infection is low. My passion never fails for curing all my ails. I'll soon kiss those pustules goodbye. There's only one little snag, my colostomy bag that's been leaking since early July." It goes like that.
You can see why I said no.
I can see the pain on your face.
But it got through. It got through. You said yes in the end.
Well, I was just beaten down in the end. But this one's been, like you said, this one's been a very different process. Because I think we learned so much from the first time round, and it started differently as well, because I think I've looked at it over the years a number of times, and then I think the last few years has been much more focused.
For me, the pandemic did that. It allowed us to sort of stop everything and say, right, what do we actually want this to be? And one of the guys that came to do the read through pointed out once he'd read it through, he said, "Oh, it's really good fun, isn't it?" Richard said that, Richard McCartney, and he said it's fun, and that's exactly what it should have been from the off.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I was trying to get a political message through. And there was just no way that it was going to come through in a musical, which was essentially quite silly. Yeah. And so we embraced the silliness, and we've added more jokes and more farce to it as we've gone through, I think.
I think so. I think one of the key moments for me in the whole editing process was Richard came to me with one of the earlier versions of the script, and I'd looked at it and gone through it and gone through each act, each phase of the storyline, and realised you couldn't stage it. It was a minor detail, and said, Rich, how on earth do you actually think this is going to make it onto a stage? And it was like, well, I like all these ideas, and the ideas were great. I mean, that wasn't the point. The point was, it was going to be difficult to put on a stage. It wasn't impossible, but it was going to be difficult. And I think one of the biggest decisions we made at the beginning was to simplify the set. Yeah. Simplify the stage, make it static. And so, it's now basically in 3 triangles. And 2 of those are a fixed area, and 1 is can be used as different locations at different times. Bit of a no man's land. And once that was in place, that actually made a difference then to how individual scenes were structured. And so that had a huge impact on the overall shape of it, I think.
It did, and it had a real freeing effect. Because the moment you take all the staging, well, how are we going to get that set off? How are we going to pull this set on? And put it all on one stage? Suddenly, you have the ability. In one scene, for instance, the action flashes between one location and another. And because both locations are set on the stage, fantastic, it works superbly. Yeah,
it's just a lighting change rather than having to get the crew to come in and move anything.
That's right.
And I think it helps from an audience point of view as well. It's so clearly set out. The storyline and the locations that the storyline happens are so clearly defined that it just made it so much easier. And I think, so that was kind of one of the early edits, was sort of taking, well, I don't know if you want to call that an edit or a development, but it kind of took the whole thing in a bit of a different direction then. And so that kind of set things up to build on. And then you changed the storyline completely.
I did.
Well, not completely, but you kind of changed the ending and took out that political element to it and the kind of points that were trying to be proved, and made it much more a story of the characters. And then that really brought the script on an awful lot. And then we had to start looking at each individual bit, each individual line, even down to each individual word sometimes. You go,
you're very hot on punctuation.
Well, yes, I've been taught well.
I think we should say that as an actress, you tend towards Acheborn.
I've been very lucky. I've worked an awful lot with a theatre company called Dick and Lottie, who specialise in Acheborn. And, John, who's the artistic director there, he will make you look at a page and as he puts it, honour the punctuation. And he's absolutely right. It's there for a purpose. And that's something that you kind of get, as an actor, you get into the habit of looking for and working with. And so when it came around to this, there were times where you'd look at a line and go, as an actor, how would I say that line? Where would the emphasis be? Where would the pauses be? Etc. And sometimes you knew a character had to choose how, the actor who plays that character is going to have to choose how to say it. But you can help them. So if you want to create a specific moment, you help them to it by putting in a certain punctuation or structuring the line in a certain way. And hope they'll honour that and stick with it. Of course, every actor will sometimes go slightly the other way, but if you've given them enough to work with, then hopefully that's going to help them to how they create their character. And so we did put a lot of that in.
We did, but those are the minutiae towards the end. The broader sweeps, we took out a whole character. I mean, after the first read-through, we were looking at each other throughout the read-through and saying, oh, that's to go. The first read-through was how long? 2 hours? 30?
And that was just Act 1.
It was enormous, and it was getting really trodden down, really bogged down in certain things.
We literally got to the what would be the interval during the sort of first read-through with other people, and we'd cut 2.5 songs.
So the red pen was straight out and just...
But it was mutual. We both said... Oh, this has to be shorter. This is awful.
So what happened in the read-through then, in terms of where you got to each song? Did you just play the demo tracks that you'd already recorded?
We wanted an idea of how long. We knew it was going to run long, but we didn't know what was going to slow it down. Is it too much dialogue? Is it too many songs?
Yeah.
It turned out that the songs were the problem there. There was a song halfway through called Princess in a Tower. And I dearly loved that song.
It's a wonderful song.
Well, thank you very much. I like it too. No one's ever going to hear it. But nonetheless, it suits the story perfectly. It lands right in the middle of Act 1. And it's a setup of this glorious character, Pauline, who and you realise that, no, Pauline was actually set up, 40 minutes ago in the first 3 lines, because you know exactly who she is.
Yeah.
So what's the point in a song halfway through the act, which is a 7-minute song that tells you where she's come from? Yeah. Great though it is. Nah, gone.
I was just going to say, we had tried in the editing sessions we'd had up to that point of read-through. We'd
cut through a verse every single time and said, we don't really need that verse, do we? And then in the end we just looked at each other and said,
it's got to be the whole song.
It's got to be the whole song. It's that or nothing.
Yeah.
And nothing is.
I think you said as well in the last time we chatted about the kind of the songs and how they structure, the fact that songs can kind of stop a musical dead almost. A 7-minute exploration of the backstory of one character who admittedly is a pivotal character and she drives the plot, but as you say, straight away you know who she is from that opening scene and seeing she's very much the matriarch of the family.
Yeah. A musical director we worked with is Rob Durkin. And Rob mentioned about certain songs in modern musicals can further a plot. You can have a bit of song and then a bit of plot and then another bit of song. And these are linking mechanisms that work throughout. We actually added one of those in, not to an extent. This is an old-fashioned musical in that you're building up to a number, but we put in things like. I'm trying to think of a specific example in this, but we actually created a song called The Queue, where we specified how someone went into a queue and developed the action to that. In fact, we heard it in the last in the last podcast we did, and in the first one. And the linking mechanism then became repeating that song throughout the course of the musical, and it created a relationship which we didn't know was going to happen until the very last real draft. And so that really helped us. So from going to songs that really stop this musical dead in its tracks, we've eliminated those and we've gone for what you call a propulsive storyline that goes all the way through the thing now. So I think we're in a much better place with it. There hasn't been one edit that Maria's made where I haven't said, I've preferred it the way it was. Because there'd be no point. We don't argue that much, do we?
No.
Just pick her.
Not about this, anyway.
I don't think we've argued about anything. I think we've disagreed with a few things, or I've made a suggestion and you've said, I'm not sure about that. I'll think about it, and I'll see how it works. I'll try it both ways, and then you'll either come back and say, yeah, I've changed it, I like that way, or no, actually I still prefer the original. And that's absolutely fine, because I think for my part through most of this has been to make suggestions. There have been a few definite no Richards through this, but there's mainly been suggestions, either developing a character or looking at the way a scene plays out. It's too weighted in one area, not enough in another. Maybe there's not enough character coming through. I think one of the things that, because this has gone through different stages, obviously you get that, as I said, you get that original or one of the early versions of the script where as soon as we changed the staging, everything moved forward. We then went on to a next sort of set of version of the script, if you like, which then honed the storyline then a lot more. And even though when we got further into it, the storyline still tweaked here and there, fundamentally it had been more or less set quite early on. And then the next stage was then to look at each individual scene and each individual character. And it was quite late on, I think it was even after we'd done that first read through, that we suddenly realised one of the main characters isn't introduced strongly enough. And they are there and they're present, but they're not actually focused on at all. And
we can say who it is.
Yeah.
It was Sam.
I knew it was going to be Sam. Weird.
Yeah. A very difficult character to introduce because he's actually a quiet character.
He almost needs to be kind of in the background a little bit anyway, right? From what you said about him
and that's
previously.
very much how he is.
Yeah.
But he didn't say anything.
For the first act.
Which I guess I was just thinking about it when you were saying about the idea of kind of developing how the staging works so that you can A, get the musical to actually work properly, and B, so that you know all the moving parts that need to happen throughout each scene. But the big thing for me was that until you've had that read-through, or the two read-throughs you've had where you've got different interpretations, you can actually hear people delivering the lines. You're still only really seeing like certain aspects of the performance. Like when it's on the page, it's literally just reading whatever you picture in your head. But the two of you probably picture very similar but very different things happening.
Absolutely.
And until you actually see the performers, especially in a position like that where you've got a character who's, for all intents and purposes, mute until a specific moment, you're not seeing how they're reacting, you're not seeing how that character is maybe coming out non-verbally, which could actually be fantastic. It could deliver exactly what you need, which is a proof of the concept of that character. But until you see that, you probably feel like when you have to go back to editing, we need to add more. But sometimes maybe it's trying to find that balance between adding too much and adding too little.
We certainly added more, but he doesn't say an awful lot more than he did. He's still very low-key. But we put him deliberately in certain situations within scenes now. And there's a scene where we amalgamated two ideas, and the delivery man actually has a quite touching scene with Sam now, because we wanted to bring him in earlier as well. So we created that scene. But there are things that we lost. Do you remember a song called What Are Friends For? You may not.
Yeah.
This is going back a bit in the editing, but this was lost again after the first read through.
Right.
It's a Motown number. It's not in the musical anymore. We axed it in favour of something completely different. But that was another reason. We thought one character was too overbearing, and we needed to remove a bit of that to take more of the. To get more of the story.
Better balance.
There was a balance. But in order to do that, I wrote a song that night, I think, didn't I? And showed you it the next day.
Probably.
Wow.
It's a habit of doing that.
Yeah.
Just had a power nap so that you
Just
could
power nap,
the
so
song.
the song
we know
kicked
that
in.
Richard likes to create songs in his sleep. So.
I do. Yeah. I think that's happened on a few times where I've woken up.
I'll think on it.
Well, there was a song in Act 1 which was cut but then reinstated in a completely different form. It's a completely new song. But the moment that the place of that song is still the same place, isn't it? When we went from the Everything Right Now to Friends type thing. And it's the same character sings it, it's the same song, but when we had that first read through, we'd already cut a couple of songs. Fortunately, we agreed without discussing it on exactly which two songs needed to go, which was really fortunate. But this other song, it just didn't work. It didn't balance once you heard the build up to it and sort of thing. And so we cut that, but you rewrote it really, didn't you? With a similar sort of, because at that point, this particular song, Friends, it very much establishes an aspect of Marge, the character who sings it. And it needed to be that. It needed to have that moment, didn't it? But the song you wrote, when you wrote Friend, the version of Friends, it just fits better, and it just makes that moment work.
Well, should we do a first for the podcast then? What we'll do is we'll play the two songs.
Okay.
We'll play you guys two songs, and they have been amalgamated to form the third song. So the next three songs you're going to hear will be the first two songs are no longer in the show. You'll never hear them again. But the third one is the one that's replaced it. And hopefully you'll see what we mean by this. So, here we go. What are friends for? Just look at Pam in Ponty. She's incredible. That's incredible.
adorable. She's posted that she's feeling lonely. I think I'll send a sad emoji. And this is Bren from Bingley. Go on, let me guess. She's a murderess. She's my biggest fan. Whiffs of nappy sand. She's housebound and online now. I'll send her a selfie. Poor cow. What are friends for? What are friends for? I pass the peak when no one sees a woman at all. You chat up guys, it's like their eyes are watching the wall. So send me all your tragedies, I don't mind, but send them from your lounge and I can sneer at you blind. Love your friends in dire straits. I'd be knackered like you if I lost all my mates. What are friends for? What are friends for? What are friends for? Ooh, yeah. What are friends for?
What do we want? Everything! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Everything! When do we want it? Now!
A new day, here comes the sun. A chance to make your stamp and maybe meet someone. A warning tone comes from your phone. Let's see what's going on. Another click, another scroll. You just submit your self-control. The guff is more seductive than Don Juan. Just one more post, just one more link. You watch your social circle shrink. 'Cause much too much is never enough. There's such a rush of pointless stuff. Everything now, your new day is gone.
What do we want? Everything! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Everything! When do we want it? Now!
Get moving, work off the fat. A thrust will get the muscles of an acrobat. Your Twitter feed shows what you need. A water skiing cat. A sneaky look, forget the wait. We all get hooked more by clickbait. The scrolling sprint becomes a marathon. It never stops, it never ends. And soon you've lost your closest friends. A filter will homogenize a face your mates don't recognize. Everything now you're moving, moved on. You get an idea to brighten your day. Your future's right here, you're one click away. It'll work, it'll win, it'll solve everything. You'll celebrate and say, Eureka! Oh, what a rush! Another big discovery to make you flush. You'll file your name to patent claim once you finished off Candy Crush. Your winning streak just disappeared, and you forgot your big idea. It left your brain while you played solitaire. You watched the ads to play for free and built your score infinitely. The addicts had it long ago. The new style's futile, just say no. Everything now, eureka, despair. These days you're stroking, poking, thrilling machines are fun but unput-downable screens. My algorithm tapped my brain somehow. It's crazy, something sparked my interest, and I haven't got the strength to stop whatever's next. Everything's wrong with everything now.
Everything now!
My friends are the finest, discerning divinest of circles you'll find, and I'm blessed. Now who are they to me? I don't have a Scooby, but all of them clicked my request. There's nothing as great as a nodding acquaintance who lives through their socials online. I'd meet them in person, but what could be worse than a chat that's a flat waste of time? So sing with me, my friends, everyone be my friends. I'll be so influential and go exponential, and heaven knows it never ends. Here's one for all my friends. Let's have a ball, my friends. We can click in an instant. There's no clique that isn't my friends.
So the biggest thing that you've cut then, is that the musical numbers? Because I know you said it went from 32 songs down to 18. So is that the biggest thing that you've been chopping and changing and getting rid of? Or
It depends how you look at the script. For me, the biggest thing that's changed is the script. The musical numbers just come and go. We started off with, I think in total, we've got 32, maybe even 40 songs that have come in and out of this musical. And we've settled on a core 18. There are 32 different musical cues in it, but they're built from 18 basic musical ideas, which is probably too much. It is. Again, I'm going to quote Rob Durkin here. He said, you've got enough musical ideas here to make 3 Lloyd Webber musicals, because those ideas just weave in and out of each other and come back and back and back, and they're essentially the same themes. However, what we've got here is a significant amount of material within this one show. So musical numbers come and go, but for me, the main thing is the script that's changed. Would that be fair?
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right about the music and the fact that now certain musical numbers are now repeated in different format and create themes throughout the entire piece. Makes it much more cohesive rather than being standalone songs. There are standalone songs, of course, but some of the themes are now repeated in different ways, which makes it a much more through line, which is great. I think from the script point of view, you're absolutely right. The storyline's changed so many times in different ways. I mean, the kind of fundamental element of where it's set and the characters that are within it have not massively changed. No. Yeah. Each character's changed and developed. I would say developed rather than changed. But yeah, I mean, the script, if you see the script now, it probably bears no resemblance to the very first one. But it's the level of detail, because obviously, you know, you look at all the characters, you talk about the characters, develop them. We've had so many discussions about how certain characters develop and what their storyline should be. You're looking at different scenes. But from an editing process, you take it down to the individual word. Mm-hmm. So yeah, obviously you're doing that proofreading thing going, that's not how you spell this, Richard. And you've missed the apostrophe. You take it to that level, but then, you know, you do literally look at every single line. We've sat so many times for hours staring at the computer screen going, right, this line, why doesn't that line work? Mm. And sometimes it can be literally just changing one word in it and you go, bingo, that's it, fantastic, it now sits right. And we've spent a long time going through the script, so in some respects I agree that the script has changed in many, many ways, a lot. And I think even once it gets to certainly past auditions and into rehearsal, there might be the odd occasion, it won't change. It really won't change in any big form, but there might just be the odd bit where you go, maybe we need to change that line. I don't think so, because I think we've spent so much time on it and we've listened to it. We've had those read-throughs, we've had the development day, that actually now we know pretty much.
Yeah, the thing we're looking to change now is the mechanics. If someone can't reach the notes that we've set for them, or there is an issue with that, there's an issue with someone's delivery of a line, we'll change it from there.
I mean, we did actually, to be fair, from the first read through, one of the characters of Harry, Patrick, the actor that came in and read it that first time, read it in a way that we had not anticipated. Yeah. It was not the character that we thought we wanted or thought we'd heard. And he did it in such a fantastic way. we actually rewrote the lines to match his delivery because it just was so much better than we'd actually anticipated. And he brought something to it, put something into it that we just both absolutely loved. And we changed, and subtle changes, just little, the odd word here and there, but it was just enough. Yeah. And so the second time it was delivered and the third time it was delivered, that was carried forward, and the characters we're both far more fond of Harry now, I think.
There isn't a character in this I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst character is Marge. She's a horror.
But you loved writing.
But she was a joy to write.
Yeah.
But you changed a bit of Chloe's dialogue in a song called Pump It Out. I tailored it to Maria's cadences because she recorded it when we first did it. It's a bizarre song. We haven't really discussed it in any great length on here at the moment, but just to let you know, it's set in a gym.
Yep.
And it's about a lunatic personal trainer who not personal trainer, an aerobics instructor who's in front of her class and is just demeaning them and pulling them apart. And you did that very well, may I say.
Oh, I think that's a compliment, but I to be fair. I sounded very much like Victoria would, which will come as no shock to anyone.
But there's that northern humour that cuts through that song.
Yeah, it's a timing thing as well. It's knowing where to break the line and knowing where to just put that pause that is that second longer than you think it is, and then coming in with the cutting end into it, which she doesn't mean to be demeaning and cutting. It's just that her way.
It's how her natural personality comes across. Yeah.
And I mean, you look at some of the lines. I mean, every time I read through the script, I'm like, oh God, I can't wait to hear somebody say that line. Yeah. That's just going to be so funny, and I hope they land it, which they will. And but you do become kind of very not protective. That's the wrong word. But I'm kind of this means so much. I'm so proud of this script, and I'm so proud of what's to come in a way. I just can't wait to hear voices. We've heard the script read now, and that was just
it was a thrill both
moment.
Times.
Yeah,
we just loved it.
It was really a moment where you're sitting chuckling at jokes, that you've read 1,000 times or you wrote, and you're kind of going, oh God, will this be funny? Oh yes, it's funny. That's great, and you do get a sense of pride and achievement from it.
Yeah, very much so. I'll say 1,000 times. I'll say it again that the first time Curtains was performed. Was one of the happiest nights of my life. It was absolutely exhilarating to hear people singing your songs, quoting your lines, but also laughing their heads off. It's wonderful to hear. So,
I loved being in it as well. I was lucky enough to be in Curtains, and that
unlike Richard, of course.
I was there in part.
You made an appearance.
I did.
And that was a different experience as well. Actually, performing lines that you'd been in on the writing of.
Yeah.
But I don't think I had quite as much input with the script last time. I did a lot more what you couldn't do rather than what you can.
Yes.
Whereas this time I think I've looked at it in depth a lot longer and a lot harder.
There's more character this time around. Yeah. It's nice. And so I just feel that's a nice way to end the podcast. It's just say we're just so looking forward to what's going to come from the next few weeks. In the next few weeks, we're going to find out who's playing what. And
that's really exciting.
I've not discussed this with you, but it would be nice to have a read through with the cast and see what we can do with the script with the people we'll have. If we've got time and we get the personnel that can do that, then we'd like to try that. I think.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
Just because we enjoyed the first few.
Yeah. Definitely.
Great. Right, well, thank you very much, Maria, for joining us. And I believe we're going to have you back again to talk about some more stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's a contractual obligation.
Oh,
she's heavily involved in quite a lot of this musical, not just the editing process.
Don't know how I've got strong arms for that.
Well, you're part of the family, aren't you?
Oh, God, that's it.
That's something.
Yeah.
They've got the same last name, you see.
That's
the clue.
Yeah, brilliant.
Right, thank you very much,
Thanks
and we'll chat to you again soon.
Will do.
Cheers, Rich, as all.
See you next time, folks.
Bye.